Good evening, and welcome to the test analysis, essay analysis for the UPSC Mains 2025 essay paper. Few of us must have attempted the paper today, and the first paper of every year is the essay exam. So just like every year, UPSC did stick to the basic themes that were being expected. All the topics were philosophical. And in all these philosophical topics, we have topics from section A and section B on the screen. You will see that all the themes that we often talk about when we think of essay. We talk about taking action. We talk about happiness, path, journey, all of these. Happiness, path, journey, about qualities and about aspects suited to an officer. All of these were being covered. The moral of the essence of all topics was captured that essentially. So the first topic that we have was truth knows no color. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Thoughts find a world and thought finds a world and creates one also. Best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. You will see that all of them, all four topics are philosophical. They have an essence, they have a meaning. You know, for example, when we talk about truth knows no color, it talks about the universality of truth, independence of our biases, independent of our prejudices. Similarly, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Wars are won before they are fought. Very similar to that, which talks about the strategy, about the need to plan and, subdue the enemy without fighting. Thoughts find a world and creates one also. When we say thought finds a world, it is, again, the mind and the thought and the planning which is more effective, and the best way to predict the future is to create it. But when you predict it, it starts with the thought. It finds a world and it creates one also. Best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. A lot of students have written on topic 4. This reminds us of ships are safe in harbor, but that is not what ship is for. Most students that year had written on ships, and today they've written on bitter experiences. Best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. Section B, again, was philosophical. You will notice that all 8 topics also reflect what's happening in the present world. The discussions around thought, about mind, planning, about, I would say that the universality of truth, contentment. These are also those values and discussions which are very relevant and present today. And this is what the topics were about. Section B, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. The years teach much which the days never know. The years teach much which the days never know. It is best to see life as a journey, not as a destination. And contentment is natural wealth. Luxury is artificial poverty. Again, lots of students wrote on topic number 7. It is best to see life as a journey, not as a destination. And this again reminds us of UPSC giving 2 topics last year. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. Talking about not being fixated on a goal, but on the journey, the path itself. And similarly, it is best to see life as a journey, not as a destination. So do not be fixated on the goal. It's the journey. Another topic which UPSC gave last year was also titled, be not afraid of growing slowly, be afraid of standing still. When we look at this topic, be not afraid of growing slowly and standing still, or being wrong and standing still. It is, again, very similar, which asks you to take action, keep moving on this journey, on this destination. So it is best to see life as a journey, not as a destination. Again, was a very chosen topic in section B. So with this, having taken a look at the topics that were there, इसको ऊपर रखूं क्या? So with this, we start with the first topic. The first topic is truth knows no color. When we say truth knows no color, we can start understanding the topic by understanding what does this topic mean. What is the meaning of this topic? So the meaning of the topic, truth knows no color, essentially lies in understanding that truth will transcend all distinctions. Truth knows no color. So it very clearly means that this truth is but the universal truth. It knows no color. It is universal. We all know certain characteristics and qualities of truth. It is objective. It is impartial. Has, truth is objective and impartial. Truth is universal and transcends and transcends all distinctions that man has created. Hence we say that there is that one universal truth. So this is going to be the basis of this essay when we start discussing. And truth knows no color, having understood the meaning, that it lies in its objectivity, in its impartiality, we will say that why truth knows no color. Because truth is something which has stood the test of time. When you start writing your experience, your arguments, you will be able to write them as how truth has stood the test of time. When we say truth has stood the test of time, you will be able to say that this is because certain qualities are, it is objective, impartial, allowing it to not have any color but to be neutral. It is objective. With this, the first argument now becomes that this impartial truth allows for advancement of knowledge. So what are these the important reasons that why truth knows no color and how is it important? So you will be able to discuss in this essay that truth allows you to that this fact allows for, it includes for advancement of knowledge, for a rational discourse to take place. When there is a rational discussion happening, when there is this rational discourse, you will be able to, this is where most innovations and advancements are. So it is this rational discourse which will allow you to reform, because you will look at everything neutrally. So this is also important for universal laws, because now everything is based on evidence, because truth knows no color. A very important example here can be taken from our own freedom movement. It can be taken from science, which is based on impartiality, where we can say that there are so many things which have stood the test of time, be it the discussions around equality, around rule of law, around liberty. So these universal values have stood the test of time because they were impartial in their application. If they were not, they had to be reformed. That is where reforms happened and the society progressed. On the basis of this, as we move further, we will also be able to discuss that this also means that truth is going to be independent of human, we can say, bias, experience, And this leads us to the next point of discussion, that is it really independent of bias and experience? So we can now say that truth, this means, is independent of human bias and human experience. However, that may not necessarily be the case. So we will discuss that how this truth should be, but it is in the bigger, grander scheme of things. If let's say this is the truth, there is still going to be some influence of human experience, because it is humans who are going to interpret it. This is the reason why even universal truths have changed over a period of time, from having geocentric model to heliocentric model. The truth changed, and this is because it is based on our understanding and experience. So you should be able to discuss that. Now, as we move further, you will also be able to discuss that, truth is that when applied to science and justice, truth is colorblind. When we say colorblind, because truth knows no color, it means it is always going to favor merit, it is going to favor without evidence, and be equal for all. For example, when we talk about science and justice, let's talk about justice. You can give example of Rosa Parks and discuss this topic, that it is only because her truth knew no color that it was justice. Yes, that reforms happened because truth knew no color. So it was a mere distinction about whose truth are we talking about, because truth is going to be celebrated. Now, this means that the truth of human dignity and equality is going to be sacred. This leads us to another argument, which is the truth of human equality and dignity, and how this is sacred, it is applicable to everybody. This equality and dignity will be applicable to everyone, and it is sacred. This can be discussed in the context of UN Declaration of Human Rights. I would have even given an example of history, that when we say history, we see that lots of evolutions have happened. As evolution happened, few things remained constant. A demand for more human rights. And as there are better practices to best practices, this demand was according to the prevalent experience of the society, and it kept improving, increasing. One of the examples could be women rights themselves again, where we talk about women and how initially there was from March for Bread to celebrating the girl child in India today, from female infanticide to Drone Didi and to empowered women. We've come a long way, and all of them were always focusing on equality, dignity, which is the universal truth. So universal truth is going to have that. However, now a very important counter argument, you will also see that though truth knows no color, but the problem is it still has a color. It is the color with which you explain things. So in the counter arguments, you will also be able to discuss that it depends upon the narrative that is being set, upon the narrative. For example, colonialism. Truth knows no color, but colonialism was also a truth. It was based on lived experiences and perspectives. For one person, colonialism was right. It was being wrapped together as white man's burden. But end of the day, the truth was it was not equal. It did not talk about human dignity, about the universal principles that we discussed today. So truth did know a color. Truth had a color. And this is a color of the majority. So the problem is not that truth has no color. The truth will have color. It will be colored by our own experiences with which we understand that truth. Truth knows no color. Eventually, the universal truth will prevail, but it has a color. It still has a color. it has a color on the basis of who controls the narrative. Instead of only narrative, who controls it? Whose side of the story are you listening to? Same General Dyer was hailed as a hero in Britain, in Great Britain, versus being condemned in India. So whose story is it? So why? Because there is also a tendency to define the truth by the majority perspective. And this is why truth itself evolves. But what would be the final word? That truth does prevail itself. Truth will prevail. So we can also say that truth is colored by who control. Who controls colored? It colors. Truth is colored by who controls the truth. Whose narrative are we talking about? This means that it's going to be very, very important that we've discussed how truth will prevail. So it's important that we'd also discuss that this truth is a catalyst for the progress of civilization. And eventually, the bottom line is truth will always prevail. It will surface. It will prevail. It will resurface. As truth resurfaces, you will be able to, no matter how much you suppress this truth is still going to resurface and survive. For example, we have so many, a simple example could be from geocentric to heliocentric, as discussed earlier. It could be Hitler's propaganda. It could be India. It could be the colonialism. Again, the choice of example is going to be yours. It could be, just a simple suffragette movement. It could be Black Lives Matter, equality. What truth do you make prevail at which part of the essay is going to be a choice that you make. But overall, examples will be diverse. You'll be able to touch in this essay from different aspects. So we could have spoken about how the truth prevails in the context of apartheid, Rosa Parks, etc. So now this means that truth, so we've discussed that truth knows no color. However, it has certain limitations where it is being set into a narrative by who's controlling the truth, yet it will still resurface. It will still come back no matter how much you suppress it. After this, you will also be able to discuss that, okay, so truth will prevail, it will resurface. So we can discuss this on the lines of truth aligns with nature, beyond human constructs. That how, when we talk about truth, it will always align with nature, be it birth, death. So truth knew no colors. It will not discriminate. It is the man and our understanding which is being guided by the narrative. But truth was aligning with nature, and this is the reason why it still reappeared and resurfaced. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated that a virus does not choose victims based on nationality, color, caste. It was independent of this. It was independent of who's being affected, where do you belong to, who are you. Now, as you move forward, we will say that counter arguments were, first was narrative. Then we also discussed, so we've looked at arguments. Then we look at counter arguments. We say that truth is subjective, truth is controlled by a narrative, and truth is used as a tool. So 3 counter arguments that you can discuss here. Why? Because it allows you to legitimize. Why does a person control truth? Because it legitimizes their power. It allows them to understand it the way it allows them to portray a picture the way they want. For example, white man's burden. For example, the Holocaust. After this, as a tool for power, we now go on and we move towards a way forward. In the way forward, you will be able to discuss that in modern era, there is a multiplicity of truth. Everyone has their own truth. Why? Because truth knows no color, but apart from universal truth. So if this is truth, so there is a portion which is universal. There is a portion which is universal. Of course, no diagrams in the exam. The diagram is only for understanding. So even if there's a person which is universal, the other part of the truth would be based on your lived experience, on your life, on your lived experience. And how this is the reason why there is multiplicity of truth. Because a truth will be one complete picture, but what we know are smaller individual parts. So there is going to be multiplicity of truth. So what is also going to be important is to have humility, to have commitment for critical inquiry. Only when you have the humility, you'll be able to accept your biases. You'll be able to accept the color with which you are painting the truth. So we also need humility. We need critical inquiry. We need an effort to incorporate diverse ideas. As these diverse ideas get incorporated in our truth, you will be able to see that truth knows no color. So what's the final word? The final conclusion will be that truth forms the foundation for objectivity and fairness. However, it's not that truth knows no color, but truth has many colors. And the way forward is going to be recognize the colors that we have so that we are able to reach a stage where it is but the universal truth that we accept. So that we remove the colors. We are able to look at truth, peeling off the colors that we have, peeling off the inherent biases, and we are able to accommodate all voices and all colors in our truth. For that one big complete picture, and it is this that will lead the society forward in the coming century. I hope you understand how do we conclude, introduce, and move on in this essay. Quickly moving to the next topic. The second topic is the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Not a surprise, Sun Tzu was, this is a quote by a Chinese philosopher, Sun Tzu, and the art of war, he's written a book, Art of War, and it was a part of many reels, commonly seen reels, be it on YouTube, Instagram. So as you move forward in this essay, you will see that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Now in this, we will see that the topic is very, very similar to wars are won before they are fought. Why are wars won before they are fought? Wars are won before they are fought because it talks about the mind. Because it talks about how you think. So wars are won before they are fought. Now, this means that the essence of the topic lies in victory is not won. It's not achieved by brute force. That's not the place where you get victory or violence, but it is rather strategy. So, to subdue the enemy without fighting, how is this done? This is done with strategy. I would say with the mind. With psychology, proper planning. All of these are going to be important in ensuring that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. This topic somehow also reminds me of the last year's topic, the empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. Not in a very direct sense, but also in an application sort of way, because this topic also talks about the mind. So somewhere both the topics will definitely overlap. But in that ways, lots of topics overlap. It will overlap when you will be able to bring out how mind is important and how it is this mind that we have to control. So wars are won before they are fought. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. It's not brute force. It's winning a war before it is fought. How do you win it? How do you subdue your enemy without fighting? And why is that the supreme art of war? That is going to be the supreme art of war because it is more efficient and sustainable. Because this is what is efficient and sustainable. Okay. So when it is more efficient and sustainable, it becomes the supreme art. It becomes the supreme art of war, not just the art of war. It's like the best. So it is the supreme art of war because it is efficient and sustainable. This is where strategy is more important than force. We have had many successful examples in our own Indian history where, where there were these there were princely states fighting against a big army, and despite being outnumbered, they won. They won not with fighting, but by their strategy. You can give examples of different battles that those were fought by Shivaji against the Britishers. So again, it is the efficiency, it is more efficient, sustainable, and it leads to avoidance of costly destruction. All of this leads to the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting it. As we move on, you will be able to discuss in this essay that even in today's date and time, so what is going to be one of the first arguments in this essay was that this is because the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting because it ensures that victory. If you have strategized and planned well, it is the supreme art of war because you've ensured victory in a very sustainable and efficient manner. We could also have, I will write here, ensured victory. I will also mention that so avoidance of costly destruction, it is ensured victory. Now, after this, you will also, in this topic, you will also be able to discuss that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. It means that you had to fight with your mind. And when we fight with our mind, it leads to, I should say, a battle from fought with strength, with inner strength. You play on the weakness of the enemy, and that is the supreme art, which requires analysis. You could have also discussed this topic in the context of artificial intelligence, of recent technological advancements, which have led of nuclearization, which have put fighting, a very, very high price of fighting for the countries involved, the civilians, as well as the world, as we can see in so many wars being fought. So it is also going to be important that due to the technological advancements, it is important that you subdue the enemy without fighting on table. Thank you. Baraf. So you will be able to, there is technological advancements. Due to this, fighting is not an option now. So the supreme art of war, subdue the enemy without fighting, said many years ago, decades ago, and very relevant in today's date and time. So it's going to be very important to talk about these advancements and how fighting is no longer an option. Why? Because when we discuss an essay, the present relevance plays a very big role. Why were you writing it today? How does this quote pan out today is going to be important. Similarly, when we talk about the counter arguments, We will also be able to discuss that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. However, it is deterrence. Fighting is still needed because it is for deterrence. Deterrence is still important. Deterrence. You'll be able to talk about deterrence. You'll be able to talk about how it's going to be very, very important that we discuss this topic. Thank you. That fighting is also important. You will still have to be prepared, because even an enemy who is subdued does not mean you've won it. You will win it only when you've reached a common ground. And for that, deterrence is important. You may not be fighting on the ground, but it might be a fight of the mind. So let's take a wider meaning about fighting than mere physical violence also in our essay. As you move forward, you will also be able to look at the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Here, we will say that the important is not just to subdue. It's not necessarily a 50% 0-1 game. It's no longer a 0 and a 1. You win, I lose, I win, you lose. It's a win-win. So when we subdue the enemy, it should be a win-win, which is it should be a zero-sum game. Okay. It is not 0-1. I will say it is not 0-1 any longer. It is 50. It is a win-win. Instead, this has to be a win-win. This is the objective of war today. It has to be more win-win. Now, as you move forward, you will also be able to discuss that for this win-win, it has to be based the subduing of the enemy. Of course, in the previous one, we discussed based on analysis, strength and weakness. Here, we will also be able to discuss that it is going to be on the basis of your understanding. It should be done rightfully. For example, rightfully, let's say ethically. Why? Because example, cyber security, cyber attacks. Example, the wars that we see, those should not be happening. As you move further, you will be able to conclude this essay by saying that the supreme art of war does not lie in only subduing the enemy. It lies in creating a solution in today's world where each one of us becomes victorious. However, if comes a day where there is need for fighting, that should also happen. However, both sides should always remember that the world is so connected, it is no longer in a 0-1 game. And with this, you will be able to conclude your essay. As we move further, you'll be able to see that the next topic is thought finds a word and creates one also. Thought finds a world and creates one also. In this topic, thought finds a world and creates one also. This means that thought is that seed. Thought is that seed to a tree. Thought is that seed for a tree, which is the starting point. It finds a world and it creates it also. So thought is a seed which finds a world and creates a tree. So we can say that it is human thought which has allowed us to discover truths. For example, when we talk about truth, you will be able to see that Newton discovered gravity, Archimedes discovered buoyancy. All of these, how did they happen? They happened but with one thought. So thought is the starting point. So the first argument, why thought finds a world and creates one also, because this is the thought which is the starting point, which tells us something is possible. Battles, so we can say that it is very similar to the romantic man of history, the series of victories won by scientific man over romantic man. where this romantic man, this thought, he plants that thought and tells you something is possible. So the thought is the starting point. It is the starting point which allowed us to discover universe, which allowed us to create inventions and new possibilities. So this is the starting point. As we move towards the next argument, we've given many examples. You could have your own examples. The second argument is going to be that thought is a creative force. They do not reveal only reality. So when we say that thought finds a world and creates one also, why that's happening is because when we think, we do critical analysis. We do critical analysis of the world around us, plus, so which is in a way the reality, in a forward looking way, and we create it. So it just thought is not just something which tells me that this is happening. It reveals the reality. We may not have been present to it, but it reveals the reality and creates new possibilities. You can take an example from Indian national movement, where Mahatma Gandhi, his notions of satyagraha, non-violence, about the peaceful movement, they started as a thought. And why did they start? It started with the recognition that that violence is injustice. And if you do not want to see violence, you should not be doing it also. So, which led him to find a world and create a world of non-violence. So how did that happen? It happened with the thought where he recognized this non-violence. Now, as you do your critical analysis of world around you, you have reality which creates possibilities of a future. For example, the Wright brothers, as discussed, it is satyagraha. You will also be able to discuss that this leads to progress. It is this which leads to progress. So we started with thought as a starting point, and then we discussed that the entire progress of civilization is rooted in thought. You can imagine, you can discuss again why that happens, because it allowed you to challenge the status quo. So thoughts are sine qua non with progress, not necessary. It could depend on which direction do you think, which will become a critical argument. So, but thought did allow you to create technologies. For example, you may or may not have been challenged for it, but that happened. Now, in this, we will also go on and discuss that how this thought has to be coupled with. It is this thought plus imagination. It is thought plus imagination plus your understanding of things. So it is not that every thought is good. Every thought is a seed, but not every seed converts into a plant. So you have to water it. It has to be a good seed. It requires the right amount of water, fertilizers, nutrition, sunlight, soil, fertile soil. Similarly, even thoughts, they will shape culture, art, discovery, science, but when they're also coupled with the right imagination, when they have their moral compass, when they are seeded in morals, you will see that one argument across essays can be covering morals. So, however, the same thought can also be used. We can here give examples from Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling created Harry Potter. To Rabindranath Tagore, he thought that it is Bangla, which connects with people, and how his poems, they were created back then during Bengal split, were also connecting with the masses even during the creation of Bangladesh. So how, one thought led to art, which resonates with people many, many decades later. Yes? So that is also going to be a discussion because it was seeded in the right imagination. It was seeded in imagination. However, so thought finds a world, creates one. Yes, it created with the help of imagination, by understanding the reality of the world. However, the same thought can be used for suppressing the oppressed. Counter-argument. Yes, thought finds a world, creates one. Colonialism was also a world which was thought and created. Suppression, discrimination, untouchability, these were all worlds that we thought and created. Patriarchy. So, yes, thought finds a world and creates them also. So, however, it should not be used as a weapon for the oppressed. So, what does this mean? That it will create world, finds a world and creates also. Yes, definitely, but not as a weapon not for oppression, but it can also be used to create a world of oppression. So that should not happen. As we move further, we will say that, in the end, we will talk about redefining human life. That this thought is important for redefining human life. So as we move further, that thought finds a world and creates one also. We discussed how this thought could find a world which was not suited for all. How it could find a world which is not suited for all. And we'll be able to say that there are times when it is detached from reality. Talk about authoritative states. Talk about nuclearization, dystopia. Talk about colonialism itself. So, they are detached from practical truths. So they are detached. So these thoughts are going to be detached from practical truths. As we move further, this means that you should also discuss that how do we ensure that it is not detached? How, what else is needed? So as a part of counter arguments, we will also be able to discuss that to ensure it is not detached, it is going to be important that you are free from bias and prejudice. That you are free from bias and prejudice. So you should be free from bias. And thought itself will not find a world. Thought can find a world, but it will not create. So you have to take action. You will not be able to overemphasize on thought. It's also going to be important that we do not overemphasize on thought, because yes, thought finds a world, creates it, but it creates with the help of action. So do not overemphasize on thought, neglect action, because it is only execution which will create the real world. Otherwise, it is only visions. It is khali pulao. It is just countless visions. Visionary decision making happens at the intersection of intuition and logic, but only when you implement such decisions. So, thought is going to be converted into action. As you move further, we will also be discussing that how there are certain unintended consequences of thought. When we say unintended consequences of thought, we will be able to discuss that innovations, imaginations we all had. For example, Oppenheimer. He was doing the rounds this year, Very, very common example, Oppenheimer. He thought of something. He created a nuclear energy, but it was misused. Alfred Nobel, Bayes' process. They were all created for different reasons, but they were used for different reasons as well, for negative reasons also. So there are going to be certain unintended consequences of thought. Science gathers knowledge faster than society gains wisdom. So thought, science will gather, this due to this thought, science will gather society very fast, but the society gains wisdom rather slowly. And it's going to be important that we do not do this. So innovations create solutions. Thoughts create solutions. They find a world. They create one. Steam engine, flying, aviation. They all created the world we know today. But they also unintended created the world we know today. A world which also has problems of climate change, global warming, increasing protectionism. Yes? So it's going to be important that when we think and when we take action, we take them which are rooted in the good for all. Otherwise, eudaimonia, it will not be a world which has eudaimonia. It will not be a world for all. But this is up to us of how and what thoughts are implemented to find and create a world which is suited for one and all. And with this, we will be able to conclude our essay. I hope this is good. After this, as we move to the next topic is best lessons, the last topic from section A. And a lot of students wrote on this topic. Best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. This was a very interesting topic because all are philosophical, but this is slightly easier to approach. Why I say this? Because it is more open-ended. It's more open-ended than just truth knows no color. So when we talk about best lessons are learned through bitter experiences, we could have started our essay with an anecdote which shows how best experiences translated into, how bitter experiences translated into best learnings. Now for this, you could have discussed Operation Sindoor. We can talk about the Indian national movement, that how every experience, how every time we lost, a movement became unsuccessful, it was a bitter experience. We learned something. We learned a lesson and we applied it again. We were learning lessons. So best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. We can talk about the world's experience from a bitter experience of the nuclear bomb on Japan, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and how that gave us a lesson which the world has never forgotten. About how bitter experiences teach us what and help create the world that we know today. So best lessons are learned through bitter experience. Can start with that, with any such introduction, any such anecdote. Now, when we talk about arguments of why best learnings come through bitter experience, about why best learnings come through bitter experience, we will take a look at what bitter experiences, what happens with bitter experience. So bitter experience tells us the worst possible. When it says bitter, it is not just bad, it is bitter. So the difference is bad is, it's like on a scale of 1 to 5. Bad is like maybe 4. Bitter is definitely bad. Okay. So what does bitter experience tells us? Bitter experience tells us that what is the worst possible. It gives us a knowledge about the loopholes and gaps. So it's telling us about, it's the worst experience. Bitter experience is the worst experience. It tells us about gaps and loopholes. About gaps and loopholes. It tells us that it shows us what we don't know. Why does this happen? Why does worst experience and gaps and loopholes happen? It happens because of gaps, because there are things we don't know, and bitter experiences tell us what we don't know. Now, having understood what we don't know. Now, having understood that what bitter experiences bring to the table, now we'll be able to brainstorm and create arguments. So this means that the worst experience, all possible gaps, loopholes, they allow me to improve with critical reflection. So now your first argument can be that all of these allow you to improve. And improve how? With critical reflection. Because now you know your strength and weakness, you know the gaps, you know what's working and what's not, you know what all can happen. It's your worst experience and an outcome that you did not anticipate, which further allows you to create a foolproof system. Which allows you to create a foolproof system. So, as we move forward, you will also be able to discuss that since it is bringing to light what you did not know. The second best lesson that this also creates, I will say, is also that it allows and it creates space for structural changes, because this was telling you what all is wrong. We can go back to the introduction, if not used the example about Japan. The dropping of the nuclear bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki allowed us to create treaties and regulations to ensure that this does not happen again. So what did it account for? Structural changes. So it allows for structural changes. This means that humanity has survived and thrived only when we learned from our bitter experience, we got our best lessons. They're also bitter because they're unexpected. You know, you do not expect them. They just happen out of nowhere and take you by a surprise. Now, for example, when we talk about this, you'll be able to see that there are going to be some experiences such as tsunami. The tsunami which came in Odisha, which came once, it led to destruction. That bitter experience allowed Odisha, the government, to learn. You could have discussed this as a disaster, as a response to disaster. You could be more specific. But this is what happens, that you learn your best lesson and you convert it into action so that it does not happen again. So all of this together leads to transcendental learning. Now you can say that this transcends all learning. When we say that it is transcending learning, it means that it has the power to change the course of life. It has the power to change course of how things have been done. When you say structural changes, it has the power to change the way things are being done. For example, a bitter experience. We were discussing earlier. So a student has written that how Kalu to Kalidas happened. And that is also, the power of bitter experiences and the best lessons I learned from being Kalu to Kalidas, because he was cutting his own branch. And the mockery that followed was a bitter experience, leading to the best lesson, converting him into a very renowned poet, a renowned person, literate person. And that was his best lesson. So what does bitter experiences do? They transcend all learning because they are real experiences. It transcends learning because these are experiences that you live. You cannot deny. It's practical. Okay. However, this is not a one-way process. UPSC may. Okay. So yes, it is not a one-way. So it is not a one-way process. It is not automatic. So it is not automatic that bitter experiences will convert to best lessons. Just using short form, this is not necessary. You will have to convert a bitter experience to best lesson with the help of critical reflection. So, however, it's also going to be important that we follow a value system. We have our moral compass, allowing us to convert it into bitter experience, best lesson. And definitely we are discussing the 2025 mains paper. This is section A, fourth topic. So the next is that you look beyond bitter experiences for learning. So, okay, until now we have been discussing how bitter experiences are important, how bitter experiences allow you to discuss, lead to best lessons, how they are lived experiences, hence more important than learning, etc. What else do we discuss? We will also be able to write that you have to look beyond bitter experience. It's not necessary that everyone has to experience bitter lessons in life. There are some bitter experiences which should not be there. They're not important. For example, poverty, war. It's not necessary that a person has to go through them. It's not necessary to learn the best lessons. So, bitter experiences, yes, but they are not mandatory. They are not sine qua non with best lessons. Best lessons can be had without bitter experience. For example, the experience of poverty and war, of protests. Okay. Now, as you move further, you will also be able to discuss that the bitter experiences, this means they are limited. Our understanding of bitter experience is limited by resources, mindset. There can be many people who experience the same, but their response will be different because our understanding is also limited by resources and mindset. So our understanding is also going to be limited by resources and mindset because this is going to determine how do we embrace it. As you embrace your experience, it is going to become better. So what does this mean? That you also have to look beyond the bitter experience in a positive sense. Otherwise, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. As you move forward, we discussed bitter experiences leading to best lessons, structural changes, humanity progressing. Then we also discussed not important. Then we discussed how it is limited by resources and mindset, dependent on learning. You will also be able to discuss that, there are some lessons, as I said, they're not always bitter. They can also be sweet lessons. Sweet lessons of compassion. For example, the care of a mother for her child, for the values that we imbibe in the family. So all of those are also going to be important. And they are but what? They are but sweet lessons. So you will also be able to talk about them. After this, we will say that end of the day, the outcome of bitter lessons bitter experiences that we've been doing, the outcome of bitter experiences is that it should lead to an attitudinal change. It should lead to an attitudinal change. When we talk about attitudinal change, we are discussing again an example of Japan, example of world countries where we learned from the experience. And when we talk about Japan, it had the forgiveness and it also changed itself, reinvented itself. India redid itself, and that is why we've been able to succeed. We are that island of democracy. So you will be able to discuss such examples and say that it should lead to attitudinal change. So this means as you move towards a conclusion, we will be able to talk that there are lessons to be learned. The lessons can be both bitter as well as sweet. But they are restricted, they are limited by who do you learn that lesson, that who is learning. So bitter learning, but so it will depend on who or what to learn and act on it, because lessons can be both bitter and sweet. It depends on us. What do we learn? So now when you conclude, this essay, we can conclude that bitter lessons will be learned. Best lessons will be learned from bitter experiences. But we should ensure that it's converted to greater good. They will not themselves convert to greater good. We have to take action. We have to take action to be able to convert these bitter experiences and best lessons learned from them into reality, so that the experience does not repeat itself. And this will happen with the help of action. An action which is virtuous by nature and backed by value. So please take virtuous actions, and we will conclude with that, the need for action. You could also conclude with a quote that, how not all revolutions are painted by brushes of red, but there is a need for brushes of wisdom. So it is the need is not just the lessons, but the wisdom of adopting the right lesson. The wisdom of learning the right lesson is going to be very, very important. I hope you understood that why best lessons are learned through bitter experiences. Both bitter and sweet experience depends on us, the person experiencing them, and how we should take action on the lessons being learned for the good of all. As we move further, we will go towards section B. In section B, yes, so Lincoln is a good example. And son of a farmer, becomes the best president of America. We have our own Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So yes, bitter experiences, how we could talk about a person reinventing themselves, relaunching themselves. These are also good examples. Bitter experience was disloyalty by his political mates. Yes. What comes to my mind, Manish, is also Amitabh Bachchan, who once goes bankrupt, and how that changes. Yes? So this is also a very good example of bitter experience and how we learn from it and how we survive it to come back stronger. Section B. Muddy waters best cleared by leaving it alone. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Now, when we talk about muddy water, what is muddy water? When you start writing an essay is that paper which has more space to think, where we have to pause. So muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone means that the more you stir it, the more you shake it, it continues to remain muddy. You have to leave it alone, untouched, so that the mud settles down. So muddy water is best cleared not by shaking it, not by twirling it, but by making sure that it is Angulimal, Buddha, garland by cutting fingers. Yes, Angulimal. It was also a common example this year. Angulimal. How there can be a transformation of heart. Good example, Manish. So muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. So when we start this, we will say that, taking a leaf from the very first topic we discussed, truth knows no color. You will also be able to discuss that how natural course will always restore the balance. So if there is this, pot of water, if I have to just, depict it, there's this glass which has muddy water. So it is best left leaving it alone so that the mud settles down, because that is how nature takes over. So we can start our essay discussion by talking about nature's course. Yes, by talking about nature will restore balance. Now, when we say that nature restores balance, we will say that there are many problems which resolve themselves if allowed time, which is very similar to settling of this. Okay, so natural course restores balance can be one of the arguments, one of the first arguments, because there will be many problems which will resolve themselves if allowed to settle, where if you interfere, you force them, they will in fact become bad. For example, when we talk about panic, for example, let's say the 2008 recession in America. the financial crisis of 2008, you will see that it is worsened by how we try to, by panic-driven selling. So what happened in 2008 was there was a subprime crisis and there was selling of loans where people started bouncing. The loans started bouncing. So why? Because there was a panic in the market. There was a panic due to which the result was not good. So we can start our discussion with how there are few things which are left untouched. Time will take its own course and will resolve. Similarly, as we move forward, you will be able to talk about human relationships. So muddy waters is best cleared by leaving it alone. For example, human relationships. Human relationships. One of the examples for this topic can also be a river. No matter what, a river finds its own course. It faces many challenges. You leave it untouched, you give it time, a river finds its own course. Water will find its course. Similarly, there are going to be problems which will find its course. New determination in sustainable development. For topic number 3, new determination in sustainable development. Kiran, I'm not sure what this would address, but okay. New determination in, okay. So as we move forward, we will see that there is a wisdom. There is a very deep wisdom in this, and the lesson the topic teaches. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Is the wisdom of patience, of perseverance, of time. This is the topic. The topic talks about patience, and you will be able to say that with time, situations resolve themselves. So you can give example of India's policy of strategic restraint, 1999 Kargil War. It avoided the escalation into a full-scale conflict. There is an example from the Cuban Missile Crisis itself, where there were 3 captains in a submarine. 2 thought it's time for war. There is we should fire a missile. But the missile could have been fired only when there was a unanimous decision. But the 3rd captain kept his patience, leaving it alone, and it averted a very big crisis that we could have seen. So we can talk about that. Now we will also be able to discuss that. For example, another example could be that when you get hurt, it starts scaling, it starts drying out. You've hurt yourself, scraped knees in childhood. But scraped knees, if we keep picking at it, if we keep picking at a wound that we have, it's going to lead to more misery, and the wound will not dry itself, but rather become more severe. So what was needed is to leave it alone, because muddy water is best cleared when left alone. So why? Because nature has a self-healing process. So here we can also be talking about the self-healing. We have discussed perseverance, patience in this essay, patience, and we can also talk about self-healing, etc. That how self-healing is also going to allow you to it is a natural process. So as you move forward, you will also be able to talk about Trump will learn when no one will engage with US in the future. Again, Manish, I really appreciate your thoughts. However, we will not be rude. In an essay paper, you will only give, there's this talisman, the way we have Gandhiji's talisman, which says that do not write anything which you cannot say on a stage as a young officer. So if as a young officer, as an IAS, if you cannot say something on stage, you do not write it as an example. Though in the comments, yes, I do appreciate, I understand what you say. Okay? Counter argument can be that not all can be healed alone, so there needs to be a law system. Absolutely. So now we are also moving towards a counter argument where we say that silence can also be treated, or non-reaction can be treated as a weakness. So this topic talks about not taking an action, about not taking an action. But this not taking an action can also be treated as it can be a weakness. So you cannot always not do anything. You will still have to act as a catalyst, provide the right infrastructure, because opportunity knocks one, God helps those who help themselves. You will still have to do something. So we ensure that there can be resolution, but not doing anything, not taking an action can also be considered as a weakness. As we move forward, you will see that inaction, this not taking action, can actually aggravate the problem. There are chances that it will actually aggravate the problem in silence. For example, climate change. You do not take any action. You feel it's muddy water, which is best cleared when left alone. It will not happen. We will have to take an action. So muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone, but climate change and social injustices that we experience, they are not the muddy waters which cannot clear themselves. We have to take action. Example, Dhananand on arrival of Alexander, then there comes Kautilya with Mauryas. Yes. So you have to take action. You cannot be quiet. My example was climate change. It requires urgent global action. As you move further, we will also say that, however, you leave it alone, but this cannot be unlimited. It cannot be unlimited. When I say unlimited, I mean unlimited time. Because if the time window in which you wanted it to clear is not happening, it means it's not cleared best when left alone. Because justice delayed is justice denied. You had to do your essays before the exam and you start preparing like on the last day or after the exam. It's not helping you. Again, not an example that you write, but just saying. So you will have to prepare beforehand. If the task is being done after something's happened, it's like justice delayed is justice denied. You do a surgery which is too late, waiting for God to come and heal. Not happening. It is too late. So justice delayed is justice denied, because the result of delay can be very harmful. For example, again, we can have many examples, be it climate change, be it the role of corals and phytoplanktons in clearing water relative to climate change. Yes. Now, we can also say that another argument, counter argument over here, one was on unlimited time. It was aggravate the problem, be treated as a weakness. We can also say that there are chances that it will actually encourage exploitation. That it will not just aggravate the problem, but it will also aggravate and encourage it. Encourage for such acts to be repeated. For example, the passive acceptance of caste in India, waiting for it to clear itself without anyone coming to take action, has actually institutionalized caste in India. That we've, 79 years to independence and we are still trying to resolve it. So the problem is not just that it will aggravate. It actually gives a freedom, go ahead to the oppressors. You could talk about colonialism spreading across the world. Across the world, not just one country, two countries, but the entire African continent. This shows that social injustices or inaction, it legitimizes few things. It allows inaction. Inaction breeds tyranny. So that is also going to be very, very important. And as we move forward, there should always be an argument which talks about the present day challenges. And we'll be able to talk about how there are issues today. due to the the technological advancement and interconnectedness of the world, which has led us to um, a need for action to be taken together, not just by leaving it alone, but with wisdom. You will see that a lot of several essays have a conclusion or a way forward based in wisdom. Because it is this wisdom which is the way forward, which is the need of the hour to decide the right and the wrong. When do you leave it alone? When do you take action? Because you do not want to leave it indefinitely. So leaving it alone may be a solution, but only at times. More important is to have the wisdom to know. This is the conclusion. It is the wisdom to know when to leave it alone and when to take action. It is this that is the need of the hour. And with this, we will be able to end the topic. As we move further, we will see that the next topic is the topic number 6. Again, very, very interesting. Topic number 6. It says the years teach much which the days never know. The years teach much which the days never know. So the years, YEARS, the years teach much which the days never know. Now, this means it talks about slow, continuous learning. Yes, we can write Buddha's example. He's with disciples when he leaves them and goes alone and gets enlightenment. 𝐼𝐸𝐻, you'll have to give me a little background to where you want to use this. But Manish, yes, I understand your point. Where we cannot leave the debris alone. For example, space, immediate need, short-term satisfaction, sacrifice for larger goal. Yes. So we will not be able to leave it alone. Good. The years teach much. So 𝐶𝐸𝐻, I'm still waiting for you to confirm of the implication, or where do you want me to address that? Buddha's example. He's with disciple and when he lives with them and goes alone and gets enlightenment. Irrespective, yes, we will be able to use the example. I don't know the context. The years teach much, which the days never know. So this talks about continuous learning. I hope those who are attending, they have their thoughts clear on this topic. It's been on the screen for a minute or two. Now, when we start this essay, any essay, we always go by the essence of what it means. Now, the years teach much, which the days never know, itself means that years, we do not even realize what we're learning every day, but years teach us, years of experience. Years teach us, which the days never know. Short-term sacrifices versus sacrifice for larger goal. So yes, that's also there, that what you learn in the short term, in few days versus the larger goal. The years teach which the days never know. Now we could have started this essay by discussing about cooperative movement in India, about how Amul happened, about how Dr. Verghese Kurian came when he came and he started the cooperative sector, how the revolution happened. And it is because it was his years of experience which he brought together and said that what is the need is the collective strength. Years is in a way collective. So when collectiveness happened, Amul became successful. The farmers became successful. The dairy farmers became successful. Yes? So what this topic also refers is that it's the success and what we learn is going to be step by step. We will not even realize when 1 + 1 is greater than the whole. So every day there are going to be small learnings. There are going to be small learnings, and we will not even realize when they are more than the whole. When they become more than the whole. So small learnings increase and they become more than the whole. Baba Ka Dabba versus Lijjat Papar's story of SHGs. You can say that. We will have many examples, self-help groups, about any place where collective action worked, international movement itself. So all of these are going to be good examples where the years taught much, which the days never knew. We did not know every day when we were learning, but it happened suddenly, over the years we realized that this is what we've learned. So the topic talks about collective knowledge. It talks about how we learn every day. But we do not realize when small learnings become more than the, how small learnings become more than just the whole. So how that or how or when that happens, we'll be able to discuss this greater than the whole. Then we will also discuss that how, so we've been talking about collective knowledge. Now, when we say collective knowledge, so you will see that in this collective knowledge, it is equally important. The years teach much, which the days never know. It is going to be equally important that we learn, that we focus, that this knowledge has to be right. It was an effort that we were learning every day. So the years teach much does not mean that small learnings every day are not important. They are going to be just as important. So we can say that a year has 365 days for a reason. As was said by a dear student today, he used this as a heading. A year has 365 days for a reason. We can say that. 365 days is collective. When you learn every single day, when a lot of learnings happen every day, they come together, form a year and a year of learning. So we could have discussed that how the significance of a day, the topic says that the years teach much which the days never know. But this does not mean that the day is not important. The day is also important. Because there are times when you can take action in a day which you cannot take in years. So days are also very important. When the tide turns in a fraction of a second, you do not know. So days have their own significance, whereas years teach much, which the days never know, not necessary. We can talk about how, when we learn, when the years teach, it is also the traditional knowledge and the experience gathered. We can talk about Manji the mountain man. Yes, absolutely. Tortoise and rabbit. Manish, you have many examples, all good. I hope when you write your essay, you're also writing arguments. These are all good examples, very relevant. So we'll also be able to write about how every day is important, about simple, small efforts done consistently. Both are arguments. Consistently, very important, and we move forward. Then we talk about accumulated wisdom and how we do not, what we learn in days, it has the accumulated wisdom and experience. It has accumulated wisdom and experience. And this is also very important. So as you move forward, we will also discuss that how, Vivek, wisdom is not acquired in a day. Knowledge, yes, slowly translates to intelligence. And this intelligence translates to wisdom. So wisdom not acquired in a day. And we will have to discuss that how Gyan is converted to Vivek. It is important for the present and the future, how it allows you to focus on the when and the why. So when you talk about years of experience, we will be able to discuss that. What is important is that we take right lessons every day. So the years teach much which the days never know, But it is also going to be equally important to talk about the right lessons, because it is only these right lessons taken with wisdom which will allow you to move forward and lead to progress. So ears teach, converts to action, converts to wisdom, the right wisdom, Vivek, which allows us to move towards make India a golden bird again, to rise again. And this is why the ears teach much which the days never know. Built within this essay as an assumption is also another dimension where you will somewhere have discussed that this means it's important to not underestimate a person, that you can start any day and slowly you will gain experience, but also to not reinvent the wheel. When we have collective wisdom, we are not reinventing the wheel. We're not reinventing everything again. As we move forward towards the next topic, seventh, the second last topic for the evening. Again, a topic which was chosen by many students. Seventh topic chosen by many students. It is best to see life as a journey, not as a destination. I am certain that those who did the PYQs religiously did not find the paper difficult. Even last year, the topic which says that be not afraid of growing slowly but standing still. Something on being wrong and standing still is very similar to it is best to see life as a journey. Humanity, civilization is not what we are, but what we ought to be. So, all of these topics, they all talk about a journey. So if you've done your PYQs, you'll be able to look at these topics and do them. Risk-taking should be done. Yes, that's a good way forward, Manish. Risk-taking should be done in schools, role of judiciary in solving cases like fast-track court, to make years of justice. So yes, all of that can be discussed. Okay, coming back to topic number 7. Now, when we discuss topic number 7, it's very simple. It, in a way, is talking about process and not the end. We should be worried about the journey. Human being to being human. Yes, PYQ, human being. Life is a long journey from human being to being human. Yes, PYQ. So when we talk about this journey and the destination, so basically the topic talks about process and ends. Process and ends. That how process is more important than the ends itself. So it's going to be very important. Now, when we start discussing this topic, you will be able to talk about journey and how journey is more important, not the destination. So we start by saying, because the topic, like first and foremost in the first arguments, we always agree with the topic. So we start by discussing that how the best to see life as a journey. It is best to see life as a journey, not as a destination, because this means journey is more important than the destination. Journey is more important than the destination. Why? Because destination is not fixed. The journey allows you to explore and expand your potential. This journey is more important than the destination. So the journey is more important than the destination, because the destination is not fixed. This journey allows you to find your destination. Maybe you to maximize your potential and find who you can be. So, okay, so when we say this, we will be able to see for many examples. For example, we can have journey is more important than the destination. As again we have in the chat, Manish says that suicide cases of Vidarbha farmers due to drought can be saved if we see the journey. We can talk about India and its movement. We can talk about individuals who started, Dr. 𝐴𝐵 𝐕𝐢𝐝 𝐞𝐨, about Prime Minister Modi and how they started their journey. If they had fixed their destination at that time without knowing what they can be, about MS Dhoni. So you will be able to discuss your essay. You will be able to give a good first example that how it is not the destination, but it was the journey which took them to where they were destined for, a bigger destination than usual. So another example is S. Jaishankar, how from chemical engineering to where we see him today, from being a simple chemical engineer. So it is best to see life as a journey and not as a destination. We do not fix it. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. Focus on your journey. Now, when we talk about this topic further, we will be able to say that this means that there is a continuous improvement. There is a continuous improvement. There are better practices to best practices. This continuous improvement means there are better practices to best practices. You reach a destination, it paves way for the next. There are small, tiny halts along the way. Small, tiny halts along the way. You reach one, it takes you, prepares you for the next. You find your next goal. So there are better practices to best practices. Also, when you take a journey, you imagine yourself, it's important to learn along the way. So there are better practices. This continuous improvement is happening also because you are learning. If our sights were focused on that destination, if this is the goal, the destination, if our sights are focused only on the destination, it's going to lead to stress. When I say stress, it also includes the pressure to perform, to not maybe recognize yourself, maybe a misplaced destination, maybe too close, maybe too far. If it's too close, you're not meeting your, fulfilling your potential. If it's too far, it's beyond your potential. It'll give you stress, breakdown, suicides, student suicides. So we should focus on the journey, not the destination. Because when we focus on the journey, we learn. We learn with every benchmark that we achieve. Benchmark analysis, benchmarking is done. Benchmark tests are done. This allows you to learn along the way. And when we learn from our own experience. It gives us time to gain skills, and we learn from the experience of others. As you break your journey into small parts, it is less strenuous, and you learn from the experience of others. So we can talk of it like that. And we can say that if you focus on the journey, so apart from learning, we can also say that it allows us to focus on the present. It allows us to focus on the present without worrying about mindless competition. So you'll be able to learn about the present without mindless competition. That's also going to be important. However, there'll be some discussion on how journey is important. 3-4 arguments there. That journey was important because of ABC. But very important. I was just coming to this, that destination is also important. We do not give the example of UPSC. However, destination is also important. This journey, I will say, is also important. Many reasons, small arguments. Because if you do not have a destination in mind, there are chances that you will get distracted and you will not reach your desired destination. If you have a destination in mind, it's going to motivate you. For most of us, it's the exam, but we could also give examples of Azadi. For our freedom fighters, it motivated them. It's important that we look within us and see that what else, apart from the exam, can be a destination and motivates us to keep living every day. Apart from the exam, it's going to be important to introspect. Be it yourself or be it for the society, what motivates the world. So we'll be able to look at destination is also important. Why? Because it's motivating. It reminds us of the reality. It lays down the destination. So you have to, you know where to find a path. It's like going from A to B, and you know that there is one path. There could be many paths. So the journey could be many, but you know that there is a goal. So we could have discussed of it like that. If there is no destination, you will never reach your goal. There is a probability that you will not reach your goal. That there can be a discretion that can be misused. For example, our constitution lays down rights and duties. If those rights were not there, you know, the goal of the constitution, as also mentioned in the preamble, to make India a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic was not there. So maybe we would not have been secular the way we are today. So it's important to have a destination. And this means that journey and destination both are connected and both are important. Destination plays its role, but so does the journey. Just like our constitution, which has, India has become success, scientific man, romantic man. Destination is metaphorically, the journey is really the action. Okay. Then, but destination motivates for journey. Yes. So all of them are right. And I'm glad, Manish, this is one feedback I wanted to give you, that your examples are good, but I hope you're also doing your arguments. So this means that both just journey and destination are important. They are but equal pillars of success, the journey as well as the destination. We should not lose sight of either one of them. Now, the best way to predict the future is to create it. You have the destination, you're taking a journey where you are creating it every day. You work together, you work with your colleagues, with the society together, with continuous improvement, leading to growth and progress. So, kuch nahi. So the best way to predict the future is to create it. Both are connected together. Yes? Now as we... Okay. So, so as we move forward, what does the topic conclude with? We saw that how destination journey was more important. We saw that destination is also important. Why destination is also important. How they both have to support each other. They both are important, both are connected. And then we move on and we discuss that how we have to keep moving forward. How we have to be flexible in our approach, change with the changing times, and keep moving forward. And with this, we will be able to conclude our essay. Now coming to last but not the least, the last topic for the evening. The last topic is contentment is natural, but contentment is natural wealth, luxury is artificial poverty. Contentment is natural wealth, but luxury is artificial poverty. Now, when we talk about this topic, we can say that what is contentment? Contentment is but satisfaction. Contentment is natural wealth, luxury is artificial poverty. This topic is very, very similar to a topic which is that happiness depends upon ourselves. We can say that how it is our mindset. Mind is not a problem, the mindset is. Happiness depends upon ourselves. Because, true wealth, happiness is internal, it is not external. I can also associate it with when do people realize about contentment. Yes, we can also relate this with its, we gave this in the test series for 2025, that to be content with less is possible, but to be content with much is impossible. To be content with less is okay, but with much is impossible. So we could have discussed that over here. Now, when we understand the topic, contentment is natural wealth, luxury is artificial poverty, you will be able to discuss what is contentment. Contentment is satisfaction. When we talk about contentment, it means it is satisfaction. We are talking about satisfaction. Now, when we say satisfaction, what does contentment lead to? Why is it natural wealth? Because natural wealth is something which cannot be taken away from you. When we say natural wealth, it means it is something which you own and it is natural. So, which means that it's going to lead to freedom from desires. What is contentment? Freedom from desires. And as a part of natural wealth, it leads to an inner peace. Inner peace is more sustainable. So, what is contentment? It leads to sustainable emotions. To inner peace, allows you to grow, improved mental health. Now, as we move forward, you will also be able to discuss the Jainism and non-possession, the aparigrah, or non-possession. Buddhism talking about middle path. So we will see that the notion of contentment has been common across religions, across philosophies, across time. Contentment has been considered a virtue and is important. It is there in Jainism, Buddhism, even Gandhiji, where he where he followed simple living, high thinking. So how contentment is important. Consequences of natural wealth and luxury life to like Buddha Mahavira versus Rangila Badshah and current materialistic society. Absolutely. So because the philosophy of wantlessness is utopian, but materialism is a chimera. Materialism is the luxury. It is artificial poverty because you will never be able to meet it. So when you have luxury, it leads to artificial poverty because this is materialism. And the philosophy of materialism is a chimera. It is endless. It creates a cycle of endless wants. Hence, the contentment is natural wealth, whereas luxury is artificial poverty. You may have all the riches, but you will still want more. It is artificial poverty. Now, when we start discussing this topic, the first argument will focus on why contentment is natural, whereas luxury is artificial poverty. And we say because what is the common part to both? Contentment, artificial poverty, or luxury, it is human desire. Because when human desire limits itself, so we start with desire, human desire. Because when desire sets itself to a very natural scale, it feels contented with what it has. It means that no matter how less or much you have enough. And this is natural wealth, whereas otherwise, you're always striving for more, creating artificial poverty. Okay. So as you move forward, we will also be able to discuss this. So desire, we started with desire, but what else? Now, after desire, you will also be able to talk that how senses to consciousness promotion as heading of way forward. It promotes senses to consciousness promotion as heading of way forward. Senses to, I'm not sure what you've written, Manish. Okay, so contentment is natural wealth, luxury is artificial poverty. We move on, and in this essay, we say that, so the topic now is not just contentment and luxury, it is also desire. We say that this desire acted as a natural wealth because it reaffirmed itself, because it led to our growth, satisfaction, and increased mental health, improved mental health. Whereas on the other hand, luxury was but creating stress and an endless cycle of wants was being circulated. Now, when you are contented, this means that you will also have enough to share. So why is it natural wealth? Is also because now you will also have enough to share. The mindset needed in today's time for growth. share. And with this sharing also comes the values of compassion, empathy. All of these can then be introduced. So contentment is natural wealth because this means that no matter what you had, it was enough. And anything that you had, you could now also share. And you're free from the countless or the endless struggle. Some students would call it herd mentality. We would just say that it frees you from the endless race to reach somewhere, allowing you to focus on the present and focus on the journey, not the destination, the previous topic. So, contentment is natural wealth, luxury is artificial poverty. Now, the problem with this topic was that it was very limited in its approach. You know, there were 4 keywords, difficult to pick up and use in the essay. However, the minute we start talking about desire, that contentment allows us to progress, share, and it restarts or it reinforces the values of compassion, sharing, kindness, empathy in a person, and how they have gone missing today, how they have been overtaken by materialism. So you will also be able to discuss that. And with this, we will discuss contentment is natural wealth, luxury is artificial poverty. However, sometimes luxury is not bad. It is, as long as it is not a goal. So if luxury is not a goal, it is okay. So luxury is an artificial poverty only when our mindset makes it. And with this, you will be able to conclude your essay. So I hope that when you took a look at the 8 topics present in today's paper, you could see that these topics they all had a moral of the story. They all had that essence which had to be reflected throughout the essay. In these essays, 8 topics: truth knows no color, art of war, journey and destination, thought finds a world. The most common things that we discussed were wisdom, change, and how it will happen with our action. So I thank you for joining. I hope this helps you understand what was needed in the essay exam. Thank you. All the best.